Hello, my name is Alanis King, and as you can see, I have a 2019 Chevy Corvette ZR1 behind me. It is extremely orange, and I am extremely excited to drive it. It has a massive V8 supercharged engine, 755 horsepower, 715 pound-feet of torque, and that massive rear wing. It is also the last of its kind. It is the final front engine Corvette. And today we are going to learn how it capped off an incredible era of American sports cars.
Today's video is brought to you by Cars and Bids, my online enthusiast car auction site that recently sold this and this and this and this and this. Check it out at carsandbids.com.
Now, like I said, this is the C7ZR1, but first, let's figure out what that kind of means. C7 is a nickname for this generation of car. The first ever Corvette in the 1950s was called the C1. The next one after that was the C2, C3, and so forth. Then we have the ZR1. That marks the performance trim of this car, so we can break the C7 down into four main stages. We have the Stingray, which is the base model, the Grand Sport, which is a slight step up, the Z06, which is the big bump in performance, and then the ZR1, which comes even above that. The ZR1 not only marks the peak in factory performance, horsepower, and overall aero bits, but it also marks the end of the life cycle for the C7. Now, the Corvette debuted in 1953 as a front-engine sports car, and it remained that way for about 7 decades, including this ZR1. But in 1957, there was a front-engine Corvette at the 12 Hours of Sebring endurance race, and 23 laps into this race, the driver's feet were absolutely cooked. They were crispy. And Zora Arkus Duntov, he was a Belgian engineer, and he's responsible for making the Corvette what it is. He watched on and he said, you know what? No, the engine is not supposed to be in front of the driver. The engine is supposed to be behind them, not only for performance reasons, but so we stop cooking people's feet. For the next 7 decades, Zora made all of these concepts, all of these experimental mid-engine vehicles, including a couple of rotary concepts in the 1970s. But nothing ever came of it, even though all of the car magazines were like, yes, the Corvette will go mid-engine any day. It never did until 2020. We have the C8 Corvette behind me. Zora unfortunately died in 1996, so he never got to see his mid-engine dream become a reality. But this C7 marked the end of the front-engine Corvette, the end of what Chevy can do with the engine up here, and ushered in the C8 with the engine behind the driver as Zora always intended for it to be. Now, the first thing you notice when you pop the hood of the ZR1 is that not only is it front hinged, as is the thing with front engine Corvettes, but it also has a giant hole right here. That's because the supercharger is so big that it just stuck out. And instead of making the hood a little bigger, Chevy was just like, you know what? Let's cut a hole in it. It's fine. Now, this was a big decision because in Europe, safety standards, they mandate that you have to have a cushion between a pedestrian you may potentially hit and the engine parts. Because there's no cushion between the supercharger and a potential pedestrian, that means this car was not up to safety standards in Europe, thus limiting the market for the ZR1, which I guess means there's more for us. Now, also in here with this massive supercharger is an also massive pushrod V8 engine. And when this car debuted, Chevy said it could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.85 seconds. But also, Chevy said this really pushed the limits of what a front engine, rear wheel drive, gas powered configuration can do. And that is why they needed to move to the mid-engine Corvette. And when that Stingray, the base model of the mid-engine C8 debuted, Chevy said it can do 0 to 60 in 3 flat, not too far behind this ZR1 right here. Now, very distinct emotion I remember having when this car debuted in this beautiful orange was that we are looking at a supercar that starts at $120,000 MSRP. And a lot of that, I think, was due to the fact that not only do you have carbon everywhere on this car, but you also have this massive rear wing that you could quite literally serve a family of 3 on. It's pretty incredible. And also, a thing that you just have to experience in person is starting this car up, hearing that exhaust note, and then revving it. But I would recommend, if you're gonna rev it, put in some earplugs because it will hurt. Now, the first thing you'll notice when you get in this ZR1 is that right here, this is an automatic. It's an 8-speed. Now, the 2019 ZR1 base model was a 7-speed manual, but if you wanted to pay about $1,700 extra, you could get this 8-speed automatic. And you might go, it's a ZR1. It's never been an automatic before this. This was the first ever automatic ZR1. Why now? When the C7 model debuted for the 2014 model year, the take rate on manual transmissions was about 50%. It was really, really strong. A couple of years in, it plummeted to 20%. Now that's still pretty incredible compared to the rest of the market because so few cars are sold with manual transmissions these days, but it was enough of a plummet for Chevy to go, maybe we offer the ZR1 in an automatic. And I can tell you, I think it's gonna be really fun to drive. Another thing you will notice is that you could quite literally take this ZR1 to Home Depot, and I'm pretty sure you could fit a small tree back there without much of a hassle. This vehicle has such a huge hatch space. It's really incredible back there. A few other things you'll notice inside the C7 ZR1. We have these lovely competition branded seats. We have suede on the shifter, suede on the steering wheel. We have a removable top right here, and then my personal favorite. Let's say you have something to hide. We have this button that says screen on it. You press it, and the screen goes down to show this little compartment here. Put whatever you need to put in there. Press screen up, and it disappears. And whoever you are trying to hide that stuff from will have no idea it's in here unless they watch this video. And you know, while we're in here, why don't we go ahead and go for a drive? So the first thing you notice when you drive this car is that although this hood and this supercharger are massive and protruding when you see it from the outside, you get inside and it's actually not that protruding. It's not that much in your way. It's also extremely loud. I'm about to get on the highway and this thing is just going to absolutely wail, which is super exciting. Hold on. The sound of this car, when we got to the shop this morning and we saw this car and they started it up, it just ripped. It was incredible. It's one of those sounds when a car makes it and you like cars, you're like, oh my, this is what I wanted to hear as a child. Like these are the cars that I am obsessed with. It's so cool. It's outrageous. The way it looks, the way it sounds, everything about this car is so cool. We revved it right after we started it up. And if you're standing behind this car and you rev it, you quite literally need earplugs. It will hurt your ears. It's incredible. And I'm driving it and I mean, you floor it, it responds immediately. The brakes are super sensitive. Everything is very sensitive in this car. Oh, listen to this thing. It's just so fun. I love it. And I've got this giant wing back there. When I look in the rearview mirror, you don't even see the wing. You only see the pieces holding the wing up. It's that tall. It's ridiculous. Oh my goodness. I mean, this is the kind of car you absolutely dream of driving. When this car came out and it debuted in this bright orange paint that I'm literally driving right now, it was the coolest thing in the world. It looked so good. This looks so good. It sounds so good. I'm being an absolute nuisance right now, and you know, it's fun to sound like this. I was like, oh, Alanis, if you're gonna be on video, you have to like keep your composure while driving this car. No, you can't. It's just, it's just the most fun thing in the world to be sitting in this car and just rip it. Oh my goodness. The steering is pretty responsive. When I was doing my research on the car for this video, I was reading some of the early impressions people made about it. And a lot of people were like, you know, we're not super big on the automatic in the ZR1. Like, there are better options out there. And there are better options out there. This is a regular automatic. If you get a Porsche 911, you have the PDK. If you get a lot of sports cars, you have a dual clutch transmission, and it's faster and it shifts and it goes. But honestly, it's really fun. It doesn't matter that it's a normal automatic. Like, I'm having a blast. I'm not noticing really anything because I'm so distracted by how loud and fun this car is. I'm on the Texas highways, so you know, I'm not doing a lot of turning here, but I mean, listen to it. How fun is this car? I don't know where I'm at. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm in a city I don't know. I'm just ripping this ZR1 around, and it's the best thing in the world. And you know, the maneuverability of this car is really impressive. Often you'll get in a very fast car or a supercar or whatever, and you can hardly see out of it. It's very hard to navigate. But in this car, I have such a big back window, and I have so much just viewing opportunity around me that it's really not hard to maneuver this vehicle when I need to change lanes, when I need to do whatever. It's not only is it nimble, but you're good. You can see everything. You're not worried about not being able to see somebody or having like big spots where you have no idea if there's a car there or not. It's pretty fantastic, honestly. All right, let's rip it one more time. Oh my goodness, I love a giant ridiculous V8 and a giant ridiculous supercharger. Like, it doesn't really get better than that. It doesn't. You know, a thing I really wondered before I got in this car was whether I would feel nervous driving it. Because there are cars that make you nervous when you drive them. You're like, oh, you know, I have to get used to this. I can't just rip it right away, right? Like, I really have to learn how to control this vehicle. And the ZR1 looks like a vehicle that you would feel that way about. But I got in this car, and honestly, I felt immediately comfortable. This car makes you feel pretty confident. When you put the power down, it sticks. You don't really worry too much about, oh, did I do that right? Did I do that poorly? It's a car that makes you feel pretty confident, honestly. I love it even more now than I did when it debuted, and I loved it a lot when it debuted, and I am so glad that now I've been able to drive it. So that is the 2019 Chevy Corvette ZR1. As we talked about earlier, Zora Arkus Duntov tried for so many years to take this vehicle mid-engine, and it finally happened. But you know, I'm glad it took as long as it did, because if it hadn't taken that long, we wouldn't have gotten such an incredible example of front-engine, rear-wheel drive, V8 American ripping. We'll see you next time.